Welcome to A Founder's Life. I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. On this show, we dive into the real stories behind the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and how we pursue a more balanced and meaningful life along the way. The podcast is sponsored by Thanks, helping founders like us scale with reliable remote talent. Email founders@thanks.com, that's THANKZ.com, with the subject line A Founder's Life to receive preferred pricing. Now, I'm excited today to be joined by Ken Salazar. Ken, great to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure, Leo. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. As you said, Ken Salazar, serial entrepreneur. Been at this game now and in the payments space in particular for about well over 20 years. I have also dabbled in fintech for a bit of time, as well as some digital marketing. Love doing side ventures with real estate, and I do all of this for my family. At the end of the day, I've got a lovely wife who I've been married to for over 20 years as well now, and 3 kids that are growing up fast, all in their teenage years, and having fun. Love skiing, love being outdoors, love taking advantage of all that Colorado brings. And then, of course, visiting the beaches and you guys that tend to, have some great experiences on the oceans. I like to stay active.
Yeah, and for those that are actually watching this in video versus audio, nice view out of your windows at the back.
We at Colorado, despite what many may think, we've got pretty good sunny days and it's decent weather.
Excellent. So talk a little more about your journey that brought you to where you are today, and then what your current business is really offering your clients.
Sure. I think coming out of college, and having that, finance degree, I was able to be fortunate enough to have an opportunity to be an investment banking analyst. I say fortunate, I should be careful about that because, as you know, it's basically grunt labor. You're just building models and doing what you're told and, go into the office early, while it's dark, and you leave when it's dark, and you really don't have much of a life in between. But while I was there, I was, able to really understand, and that was, in the early 2000s. So, there was the tech bust that was transpiring there. And I got to, most of our deals and transactions that we were looking at were helping corporations avoid bankruptcy and go through recapitalizations to, change up, their cap stack and get access to liquidity. And so it was a really interesting time to see the dark side of the world right out of college. And so what I quickly learned through that was obviously that, many successful businesses don't always remain successful, but secondarily was the entrepreneurial side started kicking in quickly. And I realized that, hey, I don't want to just sit here and analyze, how to sell and run other people's businesses. I want to have, investment bank one day perhaps look at my business, and I want to, have control and be out there, having impact on the marketplace and creating opportunity. And so I jumped into the payments world. I was very intrigued at that time. It was the merchant acquiring, and we were going around and literally taking people from these, terminals that were set up with dial-up modems. And the upgrade was getting them access to IP, internet processing, more secure, faster transaction, not waiting, 20 to 30 seconds for, the landline to dial out and process that credit card. And then you had the printer systems. But that quickly evolved into, this age of security and fraud, and, PCI compliance came out. And so that became a big part. And then in the 2010, 2012 range, this little thing, called the iPhone and iPad came out, and companies like Square and SaaS-based services in the cloud came out. So now you had tablet and cloud-based services, which gave us an opportunity to pivot and evolve from just being a credit card processing company to now becoming a trusted advisor to help small business owners navigate this new technological world, whereby they have access and had access to technology they never could afford previously, because to install, a point of sale system, in the early 2000s, it was going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars, because you had to put in the servers, you had to put in all the infrastructure, and then you had to put in the workstations, which, as you may remember, computers back then were, a couple $1,000s plus, depending on how nice they were that you got. So for a general small business to put in a point of sale system, that was, $20,000 plus. And then almost overnight, it became, you can have an iPad for, less than $1,000, and for $20 a month, you had a full blown functioning, point of sale system now. And so it was a really unique opportunity to now bring more value to this, engine that we had, which was great at acquiring new customers and supporting those customers. But now we weren't just providing them this service of credit card processing. It was really about how do we help them transform their business, make their business richer, as we said, leveraging technology and including payments on the back end. And so that was a fun run that we went, 2012 through 2018 when we were able to sell that business. And then I entered in to the fintech world as an investor, and we could probably talk about that some more. It was a whole different adventure the last 5 years that I've been playing. And now I'm back, I was able to acquire SilverEdge, the payments business back after my 5-year non-compete was up. And it was fun because I've been able to take all that I've learned over the last 5 years in my world in the fintech world with a company called Bilgo. And now we're doing basically the same thing that I did in 2012, 14, that early time. But instead of working and focusing on point of sale technology, now it's all about how do we help B2B transactions, remove check from the ecosystem? How do we replace ACH with something more modern? And how do we enable businesses to get paid much more effortlessly without friction via invoice and other methodologies, as well as make payment so that they're not able to easily pay their invoices very simply with methodologies that do not involve the checks. There's still $26 trillion of checks being done that's out there. So and also a tremendous amount of ACH as part of that. And so we want to go head in on that and make it really, really easy to pay and get paid for businesses as well. And at them to be able to adopt many of the technologies that these large enterprise customers and then many of my bank clients at Bilgo were using. And like I said, these large enterprises are using, and now bring that down market, bring that to the mid-market companies into the more sophisticated SMBs.
That's a great aim. And I moved to America 16 years ago, and banking was one of the things that surprised me. The UK, we pretty much stopped using checks, but in America, you still had to write checks and still do need to. It's getting better, but checks pretty much don't exist in countries like the UK anymore. But here, in America, they still seem to be a normal part of business. And payment-wise, I received a payment from somebody in the UK yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Literally arrived within 10 seconds of them click and go. That was just a normal interbank transfer. No cost to either side. Whereas here, that's still slow and expensive. A lot of that came, the UK, I can't remember now, probably 25 years ago, basically banned the banks from keeping the money. As we see, they deduct it from one person's account one day and take a few days to send it. There's no need beyond the fact they get to keep the interest in the middle.
That's right.
And in the UK, they're like, no, that's not acceptable anymore. So,
Yep.
It's an immediate transfer. And I think most of Europe, I don't know about elsewhere, but I think most of Europe with the IBAN system is basically the same as well.
Yeah, you're exactly right. As we say, you can get a sofa delivered to your door faster than you can get payment, received for goods and services, that are processed. And so we've got to flip that model. You shouldn't be able to have a couch delivered faster than payment, gets sent, via the check ecosystem. So you stated it, you nailed it. And, everyone always asks you, like, why is it that, Europe and other areas of the world, even third world countries can move funds much quicker than we can in the US. And, unfortunately, the US having infrastructure in place ahead of time actually became now the problem, is that we've got so many legacy systems and technology in place that introducing something new it disrupts too much, whereby those countries that did not have as much infrastructure in place, much easier for them to adopt the new technology and systems, or get rid of the old legacy and mandate it. So, but then you're exactly right. At the end of the day, corporate dollars and perhaps even some greed can always drive delays in decision making. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think there was something like 7,000 plus banks in the US. But you also have, but even things like credit cards. So the rest of the world introduced chip and PIN 25 plus years ago.
Mm-hmm.
America started introducing chip, probably 10 years ago. They forgot that it was called chip and PIN for a reason.
Yep.
You still go to a restaurant and they expect you to give your credit card. I live outside of America. In the last 3 months, I've been Spain, Portugal, Argentina, Uruguay, Peru, US, Bahamas, and Panama. Literally, the US was the only country I had to carry a credit card on me. Because everywhere doesn't, number one, they take Apple Pay, but number two, they don't expect you to give a physical card. Like in America, they expect you to give a physical card, which most of the world worked out that was just asking for fraud, like waiters taking it to the back and cloning it.
Can you imagine what would happen if a waiter took your credit card to the back outside of America? You'd get jumped.
No.
You'd take them down. You'd chase them down. What are you doing? No, you're exactly right. You even think about what it took. I mean, we were selling Apple Pay and NFC technology back in 2000. I think that launched in 2014, like to the mass markets. And that's actually how we became one of the largest distributors of hardware. Was I was like, well, how do you sell, point of sale systems so well across the country? It's like, well, we're not selling really a point of sale hardware. We're selling an experience, which is this NFC Apple Pay experience. And we were able to get a lot of the early adopters of people that like kind of saw it and like wanted it to happen. But we got all these systems and units out there, but no one was using it. Like it was literally less than 1% of all of our transaction volume was coming via NFC and Apple Pay. And this was also when there was a lot of commercials on the, tap to pay that were going on with MasterCard and all these different celebrities. No one was using it. And then I mean it took COVID to happen. And the second that COVID hit, then all of a sudden, no one wanted to touch anything. And now they remembered that, oh, I can just, it broke that habit and it forced that habit to happen. And then it also forced, the restaurants and those establishments now to, all right, I got to come to the table because no one wants to touch anything. And we got to get this, to go. And we said it pulls us forward at least 5 years in terms of technology adoption around payments through that. So it's tragic that it had to happen that way. But when you look at something that was a tipping point in America to really gain that adoption, that was it.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty is the technology was there. So no one
It
had
was.
to invent anything. They just had to actually start using it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Which, how many times has that been the case?
Yeah. But,
Like
and
your timing
again,
has to be correct. Like, it's like you can have the best idea in the world, but if the world's not ready for it, it's just sitting there for a while.
yeah. But America still, even though with all of that adoption, even with the acceleration of COVID, in a restaurant, they still expect you to give them the credit card all of the time.
Still behind the game. We are still behind the 8 ball. No doubt about it, for sure. There's
Hopefully,
opportunity.
you'll
There's
help.
still a lot of opportunity there, for sure.
That's definitely where you got lots of opportunity.
That's it.
You got the knowledge.
That's exactly right.
And tell us a little bit about family. You mentioned you got 3 kids.
I do. I have a daughter that is, she's 19 and she's attending TCU University for the first time, which has been really exciting to have her, leaving the house and our only girl was a little, gut wrenching and nerve wracking. But she's made her way, and her mom and I are both, we're in our new routines as well. And then we've got 2 boys. One's I guess 17-year-old, and then an almost 15-year-old. So they're both in high school, junior and freshman. So I do see the end of the runway, the proverbial runway, at least to them being at home now. And so that's also been very influential in some of my decision making as of late in terms of where I spend my time and how I spend these next 4 or 5 years for sure.
It does put things in perspective. I definitely changed as I got closer to that, becoming an empty nester, and now an empty nester. Hence why in the last 3 months I've been traveling. I don't have a home anymore.
It's crazy.
I'm a digital nomad. Why not? The kids left home. I thought, I can work from anywhere in the world. Why not do that?
Oh, it's fun, and you're exactly right. It's like we've already, that first semester we were spending, I don't know, at least every other week almost. It feels like in Fort Worth, Texas, for some sort of event, an excuse, frankly, just to go see our daughter and be in that lively, fun town. And I'm like, okay, it's like the second the boys are gone, the only reason we're going home is because the boys are there. So the second those guys are gone, I'm gonna be just like Leo. We're gonna be, out and about and everywhere, home. We're not gonna have a home anymore.
I remember my son saying to me, he left home, so I guess 18 months ago he went to college. And, probably 2.5 years ago, he said to me, you can't wait till I leave home. And I said to him, that's not true. I'm like, Toby, I love the time we spend together, and I'm in no hurry for it to end. And when you leave, I'm out of here. The two can coexist.
What do you miss the most about your kids not being around?
Oh, I mean, I'm very close to both my kids, and I used to spend, my daughter, whenever we're together, so I had 2 weeks with them over Christmas, New Year. My daughter started every day early with an hour's walk. My son at 4:30 in the afternoon. One of the nice things that came from COVID is we got into the habit of working out together from 4:30 to about 8 o'clock. We were together 6 nights a week, either weightlifting or boxing, and then we had dinner, we watched some TV together. It became loved that routine, and we still keep a very similar routine when we are together, but obviously that's a lot less often.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, I love the time with the kids. In fact, I'm seeing my son, I'll be running in March, the Tokyo Marathon, and my son has spring break at the same time, so he's going to come join me.
Oh, that's extraordinary. Good for you. Not running. No, no, would get breaks down the body. Those guys that do that, just pounding on the body. It's
No, I'm
amazing.
running
There's
it.
so
He's
much.
not.
He's not running. Well, then hats off to you. Same thing.
Oh, I never used to run marathons. Just over a year ago, I ran my first marathon. I did 3 last year. I did Berlin in September. Then I'm doing the World 7 Majors. And then this year I've got Tokyo, London, Chicago. And then next year, Boston, Sydney, New York.
That is,
Yeah.
kudos to you, man. I can't imagine. I hear the dark alleys of miles 16 through 20. I think is what I've heard is just really quite the grueling, set where you're like, is this ever going to end? And then you can kind of
I
get
mean,
to
it
that tail
depends.
end.
The funny thing is you can hit the wall at any point.
Yeah.
So, my first marathon, I hit the wall at mile 18.7, and I pretty much crawled the rest of it. I still made it in just under 4 hours, but pretty much crawled and sweared and hated every second of that last few miles, and then finished it and loved it. Touch wood, my second and third, I didn't hit a wall, but you never know. And, that's the challenge. I mean, people can hit the wall in mile 26. There's a guy who's done a bunch of ultra marathons that I know well, and marathons, and he said to me, I think he was running the Chicago Marathon, and he's like, literally at like 26, he hit the wall and he crawled that last 0.2 of a mile, and he still hit one of his best times. But he was like, yeah, you never know. It's when the muscles just say to you, what the hell are you doing?
What are you doing? Are you crazy? Absolutely. Ugh, that's nuts.
And what do you like to do for health?
Well, I start every morning. I am still doing CrossFit, and I say that because I know the beating that I put on my body every single day. But I, I always had a rule that I would never go to work until I worked out first. I mean, since I got out of college, and I always have to do it in the morning, and it's just it's how I regulate stress. It's how I get started and get my energy going. And CrossFit, I've just, I've been doing it now for, well over 10 years. And I just love the accountability factor of, knowing that there are other people in the class that you get used to. I go to the same time. So it's usually close to the same core group that's there. And, when you're not there, they ask you the next day, like, where were you yesterday? And I really like that, that there's that accountability factor. I like being able to show up and not have to think about what I'm going to do. It's just programmed and ready to go. And, of course, it gets my heart rate cranking, but these workouts are, even though it's an hour time that's allocated to it, the intensity part is, anywhere for as little as 15 to 30 minutes, by and large. I'm burning more in 15 minutes than most people would in an hour or 2 hours time, just because of the way we go. Therein lies part of the problem too, right? Sometimes you put so much stress onto your body that it's not necessarily what you're supposed to be doing. But as I'm getting a little wiser, I don't compete as hard. So I kind of trying to listen to my body a little bit more. And the priority right now is not getting hurt and not being injured. I ripped a tricep last year, not because of working out, but just had a fall on a wall that just broke. And it put me out for a year, being able to fully lift and get those, tendons and ligaments back going. And so injury, just, that's devastating. And so I'm very cautious to make sure that I don't do anything that kills me anymore. I'm over that part. So, but I like to stay active on that side. And then skiing, of course, in Colorado, I try if the snow's good, and I'm actually heading out tomorrow skiing down in Telluride. So we try and ski every weekend to the extent that we can do that during the, January, February, and some March months.
Nice. And yes, as you get a little older, the injuries take longer to repair, so you try and avoid them. As I say to my son, yeah, you can lift a lot heavier weights because number one, you got not much testosterone, etc. But also you repair much quicker. Like if my son does an injury, he's going to be fine a week later. If I do an injury, I'm out of it for 6 months.
Have you done any, like, you seem like a person who like do yoga, meditation, anything like that?
So I meditate pretty much every day and have for 10 plus years. I don't do yoga. I should. I do a little bit of Pilates. I was doing it weekly. I need to get back into that whilst I'm in Porto, where I am, just because it was recommended to me by a doctor for core for my back, actually. Like, he's like, it's one of the best things to give you the support. But I don't do yoga. Yeah. Do you do yoga?
Well, it's one of those things that in the vein of like trying to be a little bit more mindful of body and mobility and spine, hip, shoulder, and me having a lack of mobility as a result of the punishment I put on my body over, all the years. I've committed this year to try and do. Did you see I said committed and then we'll try in the same sentence? That's terrible. The goal is twice a week to do yoga or Pilates type session work. 30 minutes, 30 minutes or more, but at least 30 minutes twice a week. Just to, and I don't like to do the not a really good yogi. I don't like to do like the slow and low hold. Like I like the more power yoga where I feel like I can get a sweat going on and it's really strong holds. I feel like I'm building muscle and for sure, the mobility elements there. So I found that there are definitely many classes and variations of yoga that you can get all you want out of it in terms of getting beat up, including I went with my daughter over the Christmas break to the hot power yoga. And my goodness, I thought I was going to pass out and die like 19 different times. And the way that some of these people in that class could hold movements and like their muscle strength and elasticity was just mind blowing to me. I burned over 500 calories, in that, hour session. And, I think my body was in a little bit of a state of shock because I was so dehydrated. By the time we got out of there, I was just like, woof, that might be a little too extreme for me, which I'm embarrassed to say, but man, oh man, that was very intense and a good time just to be with her on that one. So.
Yeah, always fun. I only tried hot yoga once. I did it. The problem was I did it in end of 2019. It was early 2020. But I remember
Okay.
I signed up for I enjoyed it. Like it was hard work. And I'm like, I like a hard work. So I'm like, I bought a 10-pack. I then never went back because COVID
Oh,
kicked off. And could you imagine it? Maybe I've still got the credit. Could you imagine in COVID going into a place where there's a bunch of people
no,
sweating and sharing bodily fluid?
no, especially hot yoga. That's like, that would have been the worst. That's where we would have definitely been ostracized from society for
But I seem to remember I
going
enjoyed
into
it. So maybe I should try it again. And maybe I should follow your example and
I go get a whirl.
and maybe try to think about doing some regular yoga or
Yeah, but it's like, like your point
Pilates.
about like doing hard things. Like, why do I like to do CrossFit? Because it's hard things. Like that sense of accomplishment when you're done with it. Like that hot yoga session, that was a hard thing. I'm not sure I enjoyed it as much, but it's certainly one of those things. Where I'm like, wow, like that. If you want to get done, that's one way to do it. And your point about those marathons, um, you alluded to the fact that like you hated miles 18 through it's 26, right? Is it 26 total?
Yeah, I
For a
mean,
marathon?
that's also the other problem, by the way. The 26.2 is
Yes.
if you take the shortest point, which you don't usually because you stick to a place on the road, which means that actually it's more like 26.5. So you're
Uh,
looking at your watch thinking, I've only got point 0.2 to go. And then you're like, I'm at 26.2. How the hell am I not finished yet?
oh, that's gotta be agonizing. But the good news is just building it up so that when you're done, you got that sense of accomplishment and to go do it and sign up again at the darn
You know,
finish line.
you talk about, and I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but I'll say this one again because I do love it. Because you talk about that sense of accomplishment, and I'm
Mhm.
going to actually read out something that somebody actually said on my podcast a while ago. But it was quite a famous speech, I think, at Harvard, talking really about the whole wall. And it's like you have to be able to roll with the punches. You have to be able to follow your dreams. The wall isn't there to stop you from your dreams. The wall is there to see how badly you want it. It's there to keep the other people out. If it was easy, it wouldn't be as meaningful and everyone would do it. The wall is there to test how much you want it. If you're able to overcome the wall, that is what makes a marathon finish so satisfying. You had to take your fear and doubt and stare it in the face. And I just love that. I think it is, to be honest, you could argue that's life in many ways. And yes, that's talking about a marathon, but that might be you doing your hot yoga. That might be, your CrossFit, pushing yourself that little bit more.
Yeah, I think I'd argue that that's probably life for high performers, is constantly looking for the wall. And people that are maybe a little bit not like us that aren't all right there. I had a conversation. I'm part of an organization called YPO, Young Presidents Organization, and it's a group of CEOs and executives. Really, it's a worldwide organization. But we had a small dinner gathering, and the spouses were included in this. And one of the wives said, she goes, I absolutely love these YPO events because I get to come and listen to you all just banter back and forth about ideas. And basically what we're doing is we're talking about our own, proverbial walls, of like what we're trying to do, what our struggles are. And you're supposed to go deep, right? Like you talk about the 10% that you don't want to talk about or that you can't share with anybody else. And so it's talking about obstacles or achievements that you also don't want to, to be too boisterous about for a myriad of reasons. And so she's like, I just absolutely love these because you guys like take this for granted. Like I come from an upbringing and family whereby, my parents didn't have grand ambitions of challenging status quo. Like they showed up, they appreciated their job. They liked getting their raises that they could calculate on an annual basis. They knew what their income was going to be on a week to week, month to month, year to year basis. And they knew where they were going to get that income from, barring, some extreme events. It's like your guys' world and you guys, once you get settled, you immediately have to go try and disrupt again. And you're constantly looking for how to do more, achieve more, change more, have greater impact. And she goes, just to let you know, like that's not normal. And so, when you talk about it, I do see that as the wall is that, and I drive my wife crazy and God bless her for this, but it's like, whenever things get settled, like I'm now trying to look, okay, how can we go challenge? Where's the next wall that we can overcome? Where's the next obstacle that we can go do? It's why I've got SilverEdge again is okay. That was great. That was a fun exit. We have the opportunity to get it back. Where's that wall? How do we go conquer, this new element of making life easier to do commerce for businesses? How do we remove the friction from being able to pay and get paid? Like there's a reason why there's so many checks out there. It's a pain in the butt to go deal with, but that's the wall, right? So let's go solve that problem and go help people out. So thanks for sharing that. That's great because that really sums up a lot.
Yeah, and I love that you're on YPO, great organization, little old YPO. Didn't quite join in time, but I am a member of EO.
Okay.
Almost a very,
Absolutely.
very similar organization. In fact, I spent last week in Panama at an EO event, and they, very similar idea. EO like to call it the 5% instead of the 10%, but
Yes.
it's exactly the same.
That's it.
Same theory. Yeah.
That's exactly right. EO's a fantastic organization. Same thing. There's a lot of crossover too.
Yeah,
That's
always fun to go
exciting.
deep with these things with other entrepreneurs. It makes for some interesting discussions.
Absolutely.
And what do you like to do for fun?
Well, as I mentioned, we're going skiing this weekend, so I love being able to take advantage of that. I live on a golf course, although when I'm in these startup businesses, I don't get to golf nearly as much as I would like. Although I did put a new indoor simulator into my house I think I'm trying to perhaps buy my youngest son's attention a little bit more. But he loves golfing in Colorado. You just can't, you have to. I mean, 6 months out of the year, that's a little hard. It gets cold and you can't go outside and you gotta come around it. So simulator was a great way also to address my midlife crisis perhaps and give me something to do, change up the house. So I like hitting golf balls. I love fly fishing and being out there and then travel. My wife and I we love traveling together. And it seems like when we get open weekends or big blocks of time, love to go to Europe and love to see the world and Mexico is really convenient, for people that are west of the Mississippi. I mean, I can be down in Mexico in less than 2 hours and be at a great spot, be on the beach, and be in an environment totally opposite of what's behind me. And so we love to, go do that and just create new experiences and memories. So love, love, love. That's what I love about travel. There's always something new to do, or frankly, I have to unwind a little bit too. And so sometimes just being able to be and not have to think. I guess we're always thinking, but at least not have to do as much is healthy for me to kind of do a little bit of a reset. Usually takes a few days to really get unplugged, but once I get past day 3, then I can I can go into a nice mode of chill and relax for a few days, and then I'm anxious to get back and go at it again. So
And as entrepreneurs, we all have a habit of working too much. The to-do list is never done. But how do you find a balanced life, looking at the sort of, the work, the family, health, bit of fun?
yeah, it clearly you have to be very intentional about it. I'd say when I was, my late 20s, early 30s, I had an executive coach that literally, made me plot it out. Like I had to write it out on a calendar, my day, and show, okay, well, what are my priorities? First, well, my priorities are my faith, my family, my business, my friends, and then the community. Okay, well, let's look at your calendar. Wait a second. You're not even close. Like your faith, what you once, one time on Sunday, good enough for you? Is that a priority in your life? Like, what does this look like? And so, I had to now sit there and say, okay, like how does Bible study, how do devotionals go into that? And then time with my wife, I had to put dates, date night, especially when the kids were young. I mean, as you remember, kids are in those toddler years. It's crazy, right? Like, it's like you look at each other through bloodshot eyes, like, how are we going to get through the day? You go to sleep and you wake up and it's like repeat all over again. So I think, I was very intentional with calendaring. And now I don't have to do the calendar as much. I probably should. I don't. But in my mind, I just have a routine whereby I know that I'm going to start out my day with doing morning devotionals and having that prayer time, which is, I think, a lot like your meditation time. I know that I'm going to do a quick check on work just to make sure there's no fires that I'm not need to prepare for. Then I go to the gym. I should probably not do I don't get distracted by work fires generally to compromise the gym. Go do the time to get my physical component and element done early in the morning. And then after that, I will come home, make sure everything's good in the household. And it used to be like get the kids out to school. Now they don't need that. They drive themselves. So now I come back and, check in with my wife and see what's going on. And then it's go to the office, and get in and start on those calls. And then it's, kind of rinse, repeat. I guess the point of saying all that is I now have it programmed automatically that, I can touch my spiritual life, my mental well-being, as well as the physical health, early on in that day. And it's fairly calculated. And then where I probably need to be better is the date nights with my wife and being intentional about that. But we do spend, I don't eat out like alone, or I don't do a whole lot of business dinners anymore, which is really nice for the time being. And so I've got I love doing, actually your cousin said he passed away of cancer, and he kind of sent a tribute video to all of us because he knew he was, dying. And he said, like, don't miss dinner, like was one of his like lessons, or I guess words of wisdom that he imparted on all of us. And I always took that to heart. He's like, whatever you do, like, don't miss dinner. Like there's no time like the family dinner at home and like being there and being present. I drive my boys crazy now. The what do we have to go? We were dinner last night together. Like, why do we have to be dinner tonight together too? Why do we have to sit around the dinner table? And I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong, but I sure, value the time of the getting at least 15, 20, 30 minutes with them, of their attention to just connect and be.
Nice.
That's kind of the way I approach it.
Lovely. And what's been a pivotal moment in your life?
I think I would probably go back again to I was fortunate enough to run into the quote unquote success of having a business that was doing very, very well in my late 20s. Many people stand as I was probably, set. And I felt like I had it all. I was the CEO of a high growth company. I had cash. I had this family of three little kids. I had a wonderful, loving wife. And from the outside, you'd think Ken had it all, really put together. And what I found was I had like never been so empty in my entire life at that same time. Like I was living for myself the entire time, and I was constantly like chasing, and I thought that I was doing everything right, but I had it all backwards. And like what really was most important wasn't actually what was most important at the end of the day. And so there was a real accountability there that I needed to understand, like, why am I here? And what impacts do I want to have? And what legacy do I want to have? And what significance do I want to have with those that matter most? And that being my faith and my family. And, how do I want to be revered and received and perceived? And where's my heart? And is it in power and treasure, or is it in love and sacrifice and service? And so that really changed me a lot. And I would say it changed my thinking and approach. It's taken years of coaching and counseling and forum sessions with EO and YPO to talk about how we get better and how we continuously improve and how we continue to grow. When you talk about a pivotal moment, like I remember that being, I think I was 31 years, 30, it was October of my 31-year-old year. And I was like, whoa, it just hit me out of nowhere. And I was like, gosh, they always say that the male brain takes a little while to develop. And clearly I was definitely behind the curve, and it took me, to get into those to say, okay, let's figure this out, pal.
So pick one piece of advice you'd give to an aspiring entrepreneur.
I'm going to do two. First off is don't scale broke. And what I mean by that is I've scaled and I've seen many organizations try and scale when either they were undercapitalized and they didn't really understand like how much money it was going to take, and they tried to scale and it broke them. And then I've also seen companies try and scale, and I've tried to scale companies whereby we really did not have all the peoples, the processes in place to whereby we could sustain major scale. So if you sit there and say, okay, if you were to attain ultimate like scale and acquisition of 100x of what you're anticipating, what would like, could you handle it? And what would it look like? And what would that customer experience be like? And even like you get pressure with private equity money that comes in, and they sit there and you just have to go top line at all expenses. And I've done that and I burnt it, and I'm like, okay, and we're going, but the company wasn't prepared to handle that, and it was really was really crushing. So that's one that I've told people many times in various talks that has resonated on don't scaling broke. The only other thing is that you can't do anything by yourself, but you have to do everything for yourself. And and what I mean by that is like nobody else in this world really cares about you but you. But if you think that the only way that you can get through this world is by yourself, you're gonna have a very lonely life and a lonely journey. And it's so much more rewarding and fulfilling, enabling others to come along that journey with you and to support and serve them. And inevitably, it always seems to come back. And I end up getting more out of that.
How can people find you?
You can track me down now. I mean, shoot, they know how they can find me easier than I can between all the social media facets, but obviously LinkedIn's probably the easiest one for this audience to get me. And then at SilverEdge, you can email me, ken@gose.io. It's ken@gosilveredge.com is another email address as well. So happy to help anybody I can.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you joining us today.
Likewise, it was fun.
And thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and please leave a review.